Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
You're listening to the man who has received so much recognition for his work on behalf of small business that he had to get a bigger mantle for his awards and a wider door for his head.
You have reached the transmitting signal for the Big Giant Head. All Big Giant circuits are busy right now. Please stay on the line.
Mr. Humble, Jim Blasingame.
I get that all the time. Mr. Humble, everywhere I go, that's what they say. Mr. Humble, welcome back 34 after. Thanks very much for hanging out with me. And I'm very excited about where I am right now, folks. I'm broadcasting live from the 6th floor of the Heritage Foundation building on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, my nation's capital. And I'm at the Heritage Foundation George Mason University Entrepreneurship and Development Symposium. I'm broadcasting live from this event. Later in the day, I'm going to be moderating a panel on entrepreneurship and policy. What is the role policy has in promoting or not entrepreneurship? And so I'm looking forward to that. One of my panelists one of the panelists I'll be working with this afternoon is Dr. Samee Desai. She is assistant professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at Indiana University. Samee, you want to give us a website for the university?
It's iub.edu for the university.
Say it again.
It's iub.edu.
.edu. I would never have come up with that.
That's Indiana University Bloomington.
Okay, all right. So there you go.
And I'm at the Institute for Development Strategies.
Right.
And that's housed at the School for Public and Environmental Affairs.
Okay, so folks, I know that. I hope you got all that written down because that will be on the test a little bit later on. Samee, your work is in studying entrepreneurship in post-conflict scenarios like Afghanistan, like Iraq, and earlier in the previous segment, I asked you, what would be the things that we would want to give an entrepreneurial community in a situation like that? What would be the first thing? Right now, startups are having a hard time in America because there's limited capital available to them.
Right.
Even personal credit, even their own assets have been diminished by the Great Recession, et cetera. So startups are really under the pressure right now. In other countries, war-torn countries, they have limited access to capital. I moderated a panel for the U.S. Trade Representative years ago with the South African Commercial Union, and the folks came over here looking for people to give capital, to invest capital in South Africa, to people who were making baskets and weaving, garments. Everybody's looking for capital. So that's a given. We've got to work on that. Grameen Bank's done a great job with microloans. There are other microloan organizations. Are those things working? Are they helping?
I think definitely, to some extent, they help people create businesses. They help particularly sort of groups that wouldn't normally be in the fold, right?
Right.
So with this focus on
like a single mother,
right?
She needs $250 to buy a loom.
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure.
And folks, please don't poo-poo that. Please don't think that's not a big deal. That woman with that loom is the wellspring, is the headwaters of the future of entrepreneurship in the world. That's how micro I think of my entrepreneurship. Samee, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think her children will eat better. They'll be healthier. They may go to school. And in terms of, there's a generational effect there.
Right.
Absolutely. But you do need financing at multiple levels.
Yeah.
So, microloans are not going to do it all. And they can't. They certainly can't.
It's not either or. It's both and.
It's got to be both, right? I mean, you've got to be able to finance medium to large-sized businesses as well as the smaller businesses that are.
Are you concerned about access to capital for entrepreneurs around the globe right now in here in 2011?
Absolutely.
Is there an increased concern about that? And there's a lot of capital. There's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines right now, isn't there?
Right. And I think in a lot of places, people or the sources of capital, right, whether they're institutional, private, public, that type of thing, are hard to get to. So in many contexts, the money is actually there.
Yeah.
It's just sort of sitting, and the loan terms are too difficult, or the interest.
How much of the impediment to the release of capital do you think is the reaction to to policy decisions. We're going to talk about policy with my next guest, Diane Katz, with the Heritage Foundation. How much do you think of it as businesses, investors reluctant to invest because of policies?
I think especially when you're crossing international borders, right? I definitely think that's a big
concern about capital being protected,
concern about protection,
nationalization, things like
absolutely.
that. Yeah, but internally, there's also that too, because we're seeing this in America. I think the economy currently is being hindered by business owners and investors concerned about the future of regulations, taxes, et cetera.
Sure. And look, people respond to their environment.
Yeah.
So, and capital is sort of stuck in the middle between the entrepreneur and the lender of them.
And we also know that capital is a coward, right? and the shortest book in the world ever written is titled Loan Officer Courage. Samee Desai, thank you for being here. Good job today. Looking forward to our panel this afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Dr. Samee Desai, folks. She's with Indiana University, and we'll get her back another day. We're not going to let her get away. I'll be back after these messages with Diane Katz. She's with the Heritage Foundation.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited.